Hello and welcome. In this video, I am going to show you how to set up the send email step using SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. So what we're going to be doing is for our project management application, as an example, we're going to set up a button on a detail page that is going to send an email with some information to, for example, the project lead. In this case, what happens is, well, we're gathering some data from that detail page, using that in the email, and we're going to send that to a test account that we're also going to be creating in this video so that you can set it up and test out if the email actually arrives at the destined location. So let's get started. We're first going to the detail page of, well, the object that we would like to send an email about. In this case, it's the project detail page. So what I would like is have a project, and well, I would like to have a button, and if I press that button, I want to send the project lead some information about the status. So something like, hey, person, project number 1, project number 2, whatever, is currently on to do or is done, something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this column here because I would like to have it down at the bottom of my page. Feel free to put it anywhere you like. I'm going to make that a little bit of a smaller column. I'm going to add this column next to it. So let me just create a little small, teeny tiny column. Add that in the row next to the other one. There we go. So, okay. A little bit of a way around, but because I couldn't duplicate this because we are currently using a action in there. So I have the column, and in this column, I am going to add a button, and that's going to be an action button, which will be our send email button. So we're going to change the button text to send email status, or send status email. That's actually better because then it makes sense what kind of email we are sending. And let's select a nice icon as well, making sure that we know what we're doing. So we need to parse one thing through to this action because we want to give some information. And what we're going to do is, just like in another video, create your project PDF, we're going to send the project idea. So there we go. And then this project idea, in the future, we might also be able to select the entire object. So we can just say like select page project, but for now we're going to be sending the project idea and then we're diving into the action. And there's two things we need to do before we can set up everything regarding the send email. So the first thing is make sure that the input variable is recognized. So make sure that we're creating a new variable, a record variable with the name ID of project, so that the ID that we're passing through via the page is connected with the input variable that we are giving into our action. And then the second thing we need not forget, because if we do forget this and we are going to test out the action later on, we run into some permission issues. So make sure that the admin is allowed to trigger this and a web user as well. For example, you can even say that you want the web user to be logged in with the web user account or any other authentication profile you have set up. And we'll press save. And just to make sure, I also noticed that the action button is still called action button. We're going to call this the send email action, of course. Just making sure that we know what our actions do. The second bit we are going to do is we're going to actually get that send email step. And we do not have the send email step by default in our application, so we are going to get that from the block store. So let's dive into the block store and type in email. Or mail, I think it's mail. There we go. Yeah, email. So send email via SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. So we're going to press install this block into my organization, into the advanced project management application, and the block has been successfully installed. So I can close this and open up my application, refresh the application to make sure that the step is in there. And as you can see, the send email step is in our application right now. So let's drag it onto the canvas. And this is where I'm going to show you that we need some information. This is the SMTP information. We need a host mail, port, username, etc. All this kind of information. Well, you might have this by standard from your company. You might have set up an SMTP server yourself before or not. Luckily, I can make sure that we have a test environment and you can do that as well. So save this, and well, the first thing I'm going to show you is all this information that you see over here we can get from ethereal mail. Ethereal mail can provide us with a fake SMTP service, as it says in the information here. I do advise you to, if you're going to test this and set up emails, do not use ethereal mail with actual production data, of course. Just use this for testing sake until you have your own SMTP server. Here, we're going to click on Create Ethereal Account. And here, as you can see, we are provided with a host, a port, a username, a password, and all the stuff we need to set up our SMTP mail step. And well, we can either fill this in by hand, or we can create a database record so that in case we need to use this send email step more often, we can just gather it from the object. So that's what we're going to be doing. Because in this application, there is already an email configuration model which holds all that information that is being asked to configure this SMTP step. So let's dive into our mail configuration backoffice. This is something that is provided by the Essential App Review template. If you do not have this, have a look or download the template yourself, rebuild the data model with all the email configuration data, and then make sure to create a back office so that you can gather this information yourself as well. So let's open up the page. And once we have opened up the page and have logged in to your application, I've logged in previously, so that's easy for me to access the back office right now. Here is where we can fill in the ethereal email information. So let's go through that. The host, I'm gonna copy that, paste it in there, the port, and this is where I might even speed up the video just to make sure that everything is done nice and quickly. There we go. Or just click along while you're listening to me clicking along. Sender email, that can be any email you set up, such as my email. There we go. With sender name Odin, and then the application identifier. It's important that you fill in your own application name. So in here we can use projectadvanced.batty.app. In case you feel like using my SMTP information, feel free to. I'm just using this for testing, as are you. So as another reminder, don't use any production data in here. Press save, and now we have one record of email data. This record is used to send emails with. So let's dive back into our send email action, and we named it appropriately so we can find it easily as well. And now we can finally fill in this data. But before we can access that one record we have created, we're first going to make an action variable. This one action variable will allow us to access the one record from our email configuration model. And how can we access one record? Well, we're going to create a record variable, call this mail config, mail underscore config, because otherwise it won't save. Select the model, the email configuration model, and well, if we select a record from a model, it could be any record, of course. So that's why we are creating a filter rule. ID equals 1, because we have only created one email configuration. In case you have created multiple email configuration records, you can also say, well, for this one email, I'd like to use the email configuration from record 1. Otherwise, you can choose record 2 or 3 or whichever amount of records you have created and which one you need. For now, we're just going to use number 1. So ID equals 1. We're grabbing the first record from our email configuration data set. Press save. And now we're going to the options. And here it luckily gets, well, quite easy because we only have to press the X, dive into our mail config object, and we select the host name. with the host name. And for port, we are going to do the same. Dive into the mail config, select the port. For username, dive into the object, select the username all the way at the bottom. Password, I'm going to be doing the same. For the sender email as well. The sender name. There we go. And the recipient could, for example, be the person you are targeting. So in this case, we want to send it to the project lead. So I'm going to, instead of go via the mail config, I'm going to look at the project ID, the project object that we are parsing through from our detail page. And I'm going to press the arrow and we're going to connect the web user that owns the project. So I'm pressing the email address from the web user, as you can see, via the object called ID that we are giving in via the start step of the action. We're navigating via the web user connection and using that email address. And we can do the same for the recipient name, ID, web user, full name. There we go. And here we can say subject, well, and we're going to call this project status update. Press save just to make sure that everything's set. And now we are going to define the body template. Just as defining a PDF, you can use template variables for dynamic information in your body template. So for example, if I want to have the project name in my body template, I can gather the project name from the object that I'm using in this action. Well, we're connecting that as the value, and I'm calling this name. Well, how can we call upon this name in our body template? We can do that by opening up with double brackets, then filling in the key from the template variables. In this case, it's name. And then we close up with double brackets. The email now knows it needs to gather some information from our template variables. So name currently has the status, and we're also going to be adding the status, of course, because that is what this email is about. So via the object called ID, we're getting the status. We're also going to be calling this status. So project name, so it will say something like project 1 currently has the status, and then it says something like to do, in progress, etc. Then with the HTML text, we're going to be opening up, break, closing, and now it gives us a space, an enter space in our body template. We can do even another one for a little bit of nice professional styling, and we can say something like, thank you for using our application. And then we have set up the email template. This is all for testing, of course. Feel free to set up the email any way you'd like for this test experience. So I'm pressing save just to make sure that it's saved. And from here on, we wait until everything is saved. The email should work. So how can we test this? Well, in Ethereal Mail, we also have the option to open the mailbox that we have. And as you can see, this is your Ethereal mail or your Ethereal mailbox. What we can do right now is if we go to our detail page, so let's dive into our detail page, press play, press compile, open up our lovely application. And now we can dive into that project. Oh, I need to give an ID, of course. So let's open up a project. Here we go. Well, this has a status that is not the first status. So you know that whenever I send this email, I'm sending an email with the project name, the standard lorem ipsum passage. And then with the status in progress, we can say send status email, and it should have sent that email. So let's also change this to done, and then send another status email just to check if it works. Open up our Ethereal mailbox, refresh, and there's 2 new emails. So that's good. That means that everything is working. Press the first one, and it says the standard lorem ipsum passage currently has the status in progress. Thank you for using our application. As you can see, it also has the double break. It looks a little nicer. Otherwise, it would just be a clump of text. let's go back. Let's have a look at the other email. And the status is done. Meaning that we have just updated our project lead with the information of the project status. You now know how to set up the send email step. You can configure this anywhere you'd like. With your own SMTP information, you can send out all the emails you'd like. So yeah, go ahead, send out those emails, maybe even automate some stuff, and see you at the next video.